Inclusive teaching, supporting all students in the college classroom. Student to instructor microaggressions.
When students commit microaggressions against, let's say, a faculty of color, it is not unusual. One of the things, again, in the studies that we have conducted, indicate that faculty of color describe microaggressions that occur to them constantly. These are most likely to occur during the first class meeting. And one of the things that faculty of color oftentimes describe, and one Black faculty, he gave the example of beginning a lecture, an overview of the course. And one female student constantly thumbed through the textbook and said to him, "I can't find where this is at." He was saying that a white professor who came in to lecture would never be subjected to that, because what was happening here is that the word and status of the Black professor was not considered credible unless it is in the book itself. They tell us that it does several things. It pushes emotional hot buttons in them. And they experience microaggressions from their own colleagues as well. So how they handle it is that they're trapped in between playing that, how do I point out a microaggression to a white student and not lose that white student, but at the same time not alienate students of color who are expecting that the faculty member of color is going to do anything about it. And that's the dilemma that we found going on with many faculty of color. But when a faculty of color allows a microaggression to occur unchallenged, it creates a classroom climate where it is okay to engage in those forms of behavior. But I do not attribute blame to the faculty of color. They're in an unenviable position of dealing with these issues. When a target, a professor, encounters a microaggression, what we say, the first rule of thumb is take care of yourself first. It's really out of bounds to say that a person of color who experiences a microaggression should educate first. No, we find that you've got to take care of yourself first before you educate, because it is painful to experience a microaggression going on. And then what we would do is to say that these are strategies that you can do. Now, this particular faculty of color I was talking about, the Black faculty who was questioned, he says that I ward off microaggressions that deal with the competency of Black faculty members. And he says, I do it this way. I go into the class for the first class meeting. I tell them about my background and training, the research I've done, maybe even awards that they have received for the type of work. And what they are trying to do immediately is to establish credibility, because one of the things about microaggressions is that you derogate the communicator, and thus what they're revealing, the content, is indeed something that is worthless and that cannot be used.
Some of the challenges I've encountered as a faculty member of color teaching specifically topics that focus on power, privilege, and oppression, I automatically start from a point where I feel like when I walk in the door, my body is going to be read in a certain way. And instead of letting students have free range in how they're going to read me, I take the approach that I'm going to be more explicit and transparent about the things that are important to me, what I'm passionate about, why I teach in the manner that I teach. And I do that so that I can release them of the curiosity of having to guess about those things. In my experience, when you're much more transparent about who you are, it frees students up to focus their energies on other things. And so For example, I begin every course with a narrative about the particular content of the course, why I've chosen the content, how that content is relevant to who I am and the ways in which I embody some of the content that I'm teaching. I invite students to have their own perspectives and views on this content, and I am not trying to get them to believe what I believe or feel what I feel, but I am trying to get them to engage in critical ways with these topics. So I also recognize that doing so may subject me to higher levels of scrutiny around particular things. And I name that, so I locate myself in a broader context of the institution of higher education and some of the challenges that faculty of color face in the academy. So I help to provide a little bit of context for why I do what I do and the way in which I do it. Some other strategies I think about are really modeling for my students how to enter the learning environment in whole, authentic ways. I find that when they see that I am trying hard to do that, they are more likely to view me in sort of, and I don't know how to describe this other than humanistic ways. So I become more real to them and less of a figment of their imagination. I also know that when I allow my passion to be a part of how I show up in the classroom, that can generate a range of reactions. And I invite students to feel what they feel and name what they feel. And I create opportunities for them to ask me questions about something I lectured about. I don't open up the learning environment for sort of just random questions about what it means to be frank to it, but I do ask them to think about how the types of questions they ask can inform their sort of participation in the learning environment. A couple other strategies I think about, particularly as it relates for historically marginalized faculty of color in particular, is really doing the self-work in advance so that you've had a chance to process how you feel about some of the content that you're sharing, even if your views either align with or challenge some of the perspectives that are being shown. Finding that right balance of showing your authentic reactions, but also being familiar with your responses. So I often, say to folks, I have a pretty good poker face, and I can be in a situation where something is being said that I'm having a really violent reaction to, but I am processing that and understanding it in a way that allows for both me and the particular student that may be involved to remain engaged in the learning process in a way that helps us move through it. So knowing how you're going to respond when on particular issues, whether they're hot button topics or things that you're real passionate about, and being mindful about how you're showing up is helpful.